Hello, everybody. This is Steve Yates with Prime Guidance. Thanks for joining us today. We like to get together at least once a month and talk about the latest happenings on Amazon, Walmart, and other marketplaces. Today's agenda is to talk about the Prosper Show and provide a recap on what was learned at the show, some key insights that you may not be aware of. But we also want to open it up to any questions and answers you may have, especially after receiving some new content. You may have follow-up questions that you'd like to ask us, and we'd like to be there to answer it for you. So please stop us anywhere along the way and just type something in the chat box, and we will be happy to answer it during today's webinar. But if we don't get to it, we'll be happy to follow up with an email or a phone call afterwards. On today's agenda, we're going to be talking through the Prosper Show overview. We'll talk about some of the seller tips and tricks that were shared, share some Walmart insights and some Amazon insights, as well as some tools and solution providers that were mentioned at the show that we plan to dig into, and you may want to as well. What is the Prosper Show? For those that don't know, Prosper is one of the first Amazon shows. I've been going to Prosper Show since about 2015, maybe, or since the very first year it was produced. This year, it was March 13th through the 16th. It was by far the largest show yet. Much larger expo hall, so a lot more vendors there. There were, I felt like, more opportunities to network, and there were sponsored parties and such where you were able to connect with other sellers and other service providers in a more impactful way. They also broadened the content to include more of the insights related to selling beyond Amazon, particularly Walmart. That was some of the most, I think, anticipated and exciting content at the conference, to be honest, because so many of the people at the conference were avid Amazon sellers and maybe Walmart newbies. So there was definitely a need for more of a Walmart focus. I was pretty impressed with the content. I thought that they had pretty good speakers in the past. Last year, I was less impressed with the speakers. Felt like it was more about the sponsorships. In this case, I felt like there was still sponsors for every event or most events, but the speakers, I believe, were not just brands trying to push their product on you. One of the things that was interesting is there was a new conference that was announced while we were at Prosper Show, and it was the Helium 10 Sell Plus Scale Conference, which it was announced to begin September 20th to 22nd of this year. Based on what I see, I think it's going to be a pretty good conference. So I'm planning to attend, and you suggest that any of you sellers may want to consider attending as well. So I thought we'd start with the seller tips and tricks. Use managed by experiments for exceptions by writing a hypothesis, which is reviewed by Amazon manually, to explain why something outside of Amazon policy should be tested. One of the examples was a main image where a glow-in-the-dark product was much better suited on a dark background. So if you can get that manually approved and the data speaks for itself that it's better for the customer, then hopefully you're able to maintain that exception to Amazon's normal policy. That was by Anthony from PickFu. Thought it was a really good suggestion on how to kind of creatively use managed by experiments.
I mean, that's to literally get something that would be outside of Amazon's normal TOS, show Amazon that it's working well, and then get them to kind of give you an exception on that policy, correct?
That's exactly right. And by the way, any of these things, I'd like the consultants to chime in at any point if you've got additional things to add or clarity to make like that. So, yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll just say to this, and everybody knows me on the Amazon leadership principles, when you're making this request here, use the term, it will be better for the customer. They'll be able to make a better informed buying decision or something like that.
Sure.
And Steve,
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I don't have an account open, and I don't want to misspeak to this. So I'll put you on the spot. It might be helpful just broadly to talk to people about, what does the experiments, apply to? So, stores, etc.
Sure. So, So, for example, for those that don't know what Amazon Experiments is, it's a way to basically do an A/B test on certain criteria. To my recollection, the criteria that you can do is the main image, the title, and the A+ content. You're able to do experiments on those three things within Amazon with very good data to support it. Only certain products that have enough traffic and sales volume are eligible. And you basically write a hypothesis that Amazon then reviews, it approves it, and then it will then basically do an A/B test. And they tell you that when they do this, your ranking is not impacted. So it's a safe way of testing. If you needed to test like alternate images or bullet points or description or something that's not part of the Amazon Experiments program, there are other tools that can allow you to do that, like Splitly, for example. So we always want to make sure that you're testing properly. No matter what you test, only make one change at a time. Like, for example, don't change the title and A+ and run a test on both of those. We really need to have an isolation of what we're testing so we can get really relevant results that we're 100% confident in. I wouldn't recommend testing your best-selling item. I like to test something that's middle of the road, not your best seller, not your slowest seller, something in the middle where you can gain a hypothesis of which is the best example. For example, if I was testing whether I wanted to add my brand to the beginning of the title or the end of the title, it wouldn't matter which product I tested. As long as I have enough volume to test, I would want to test something that didn't impact my sales materially, like my bestseller. But I'd want to, once I have that insight, that would be generally applicable across all of your products. So then you can use that hypothesis to roll it out towards other products. And just have a plan. So right now we're months away from holiday. How are you going to gather learnings across all these things and make sure you have a plan? I'm going to test titles. Here's my two different hypotheses on how I would structure my titles differently. I'm going to do that for these products. On these other products, I'm going to test main image differences. What can I do to maybe make my product stand out from a crowded search result page or whatever? Test those. Others, maybe A+ content. Maybe I want to test more words versus less words. Is that better if I have less words, more clear points for mobile? Let's get those things tested and 100% locked down before the holiday critical selling season.
And I was going to add too, Steve, that so the manager experiments is going to be under your brand tab in Seller Central. And by the way, this was something that was added in the last 6 to 8 months, I believe. But wanted to remind our audience that if you don't go into your settings and then manage permissions, when Amazon adds something to your account, if it's new, they're going to default your permissions to none. So it's good to always check, maybe like once a month, go into settings and permissions and check that, because if you don't see manage experiments under brand, it could be because you don't have it turned on in your profile under settings.
That's a good point. Like, for example, they just launched under brand analytics, the search analytics tool. Well, that would by default, it's not going to be a permission that's granted to you. So you need to make sure that you're periodically reviewing those permissions and adding any applicable tools to all of your users. I can't tell you how many times I've gained access into a client's account and told them specifically what I want permissions for. And then the client that we're working with says, I didn't even know that existed, because they never had their permissions changed. So it never showed up in their browser. I wish Amazon would change that. Actually, I think that it would be a much, much better experience if they launched new products where it showed up, but it had a landing page that says you're not yet authorized, which it does in plenty of other areas. I don't know why they don't do that for new features and functions. So tip 2, this was a pretty creative one by Bradley Sutton from Helium 10. When you start an ad campaign, Amazon will recommend terms that are most likely to produce revenue. So you know how it automatically suggests terms. The top terms there are the ones that Amazon recognizes are likely to produce the best revenue. Well, you can do the same thing on competitors' listings. So many people don't realize this, but you can add any product to your Amazon Seller Central account as long as it's not brand gated or category gated. So you could hypothetically add a competitor's item to your Seller Central account, just temporarily, and start to initiate an ad campaign. Nothing you're obviously going to advertise against, but to start that and see what are the most likely terms that would produce revenue. Pretty cool to be able to see what terms Amazon thinks would drive traffic to your competitors, so you can then double down on those terms against your items with ad campaigns and organic optimization efforts.
It's a really good one. I like that.
Yeah, it was definitely a really good one. And he also threw out a bonus tip that said Amazon autocomplete in the search box can be used to determine the best-selling child ASINs on competitors. So I'm a little, he mentioned that this was based on sales revenue. I've always been under the impression that autocomplete is based on the number of people that would search for the terms. But like Paul Becker pointed out, with his years of experience in e-commerce, these search rules can be highly customized. So there's a high likelihood that by default, when you start typing a word, let's say I'm searching for charger 4 or something, it's going to pull up the most commonly typed searches, not highest revenue searches. And then, but if I search for something that's pretty much a full title, then it would switch to show me the best selling colors or variants of that product by revenue. So that is basically what we're told by Bradley Sutton. I thought it was another interesting thing. What I would suggest you do is test it on your own products. Clearly, you'll be able to find that out pretty quick if you just typed in the parent name essentially and see if the colors that are shown, the children that are shown, are your best sellers in ranked order. And by the way, I put this statement on each of the slides. These are things I'm sharing with you that were shared at the Prosper Show, but we haven't validated them all, and not all of them may be in alignment with Amazon terms of service or Walmart terms of service. So please do your due diligence before doing any of the things that we talk about on today's deck. If you have questions, we'd be happy to help diagnose it for you. I just want to be able to get these insights to you as quick as possible before we have time to fully dive into everything. Tip 3 was, I'll be honest, I didn't catch this fully. He basically talked about a new report, mentioned about it having insights related to market basket, and also mentioned category performance. I wish I'd captured it all, but I'm guessing it may have been related to the new search analytics dashboards, which provide analytics based on consumer behavior on that search result page. And there's also some brand analytics tools that do specifically talk about market basket, whether people have looked at, whether people have bought. I don't know exactly what he was calling out. I didn't want to just exclude this tip because I'm sure it was solid. I just didn't capture it all, and they haven't sent out the videos for me to reference it yet.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, if you want to go back just one quick sec.
Yeah.
Obviously I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what they were referring to, but some of the new reports that I've seen in this area, there's one where you actually can go in and it generates a list of every product being sold on Amazon with your brand names. So you actually can go to one report and find out if other people are selling products of yours on Amazon. Obviously, if it's on the same product detail page, well, you see it in the buy box reporting and all that. But somebody may be selling another product. So I know that's one new report that, again, you can see every seller of products under your brand name. That's one. Another new report I've seen recently is they're actually now showing almost, a typical e-commerce conversion funnel. So, for searches for your products, it's showing you actually the search impressions and the traffic to the PDP and the add to cart and things like that. So that's new. And then I'm trying to think.
I believe that report is what you're referring to as part of the search analytics dashboards.
Yeah. So those are a couple of them. And specifically, I just wanted to call out.
That's the cool thing is Amazon went from having almost no reporting to now having some pretty great reporting, actually. In fact,
Right.
I feel like there's a lot of reports out there that are not utilized because there's a lack of understanding. So, for example, I was reviewing with a client the other day the search term report, and I was explaining how to use that to see what are the types of search terms that are most commonly searched that are relevant, and how am I performing against those. And one of the things it talks about is search. What's the term it uses? It's basically it's a number that's associated with the most popular searches, and the lower number is actually better in that case. It means that like number one is maybe back when we had everyone was searching for masks, for example, for protection, personal protection masks. That would be number one. And
Search
then the next
frequency
one,
rank.
Yes, exactly. So that's an example where you're so used to looking at search volume, your natural indication is, oh, that's search volume, and you may misuse the report. Or in other cases, you just don't understand the report, or you don't understand what is it referring to. Like this new search term analytics report is specifically geared towards data on that search result page, different than a lot of the current data in brand analytics that are based on the PDP page. So it can be a little confusing. So we, all of our consultants here at Prime Guidance are in there all the time, playing around with reports, learning how to use these reports. We'd be happy to walk you through how to get the most of these reports and how to, how to really take a deep dive into your products, your competitors' products, because that's what's going to change you from a good seller to an advanced best of breed seller. And by the way, this particular tip was by Nir at MarketWise.
Yeah, so just one last comment, you don't need to go back, is sort of how to sort of connect these dots. We started talking about the experiments, whether it be the Amazon experiments or using third-party tools in these reports. And this is a good example. One of the relatively new reports will show you, compared to your category, your peers, how does your click-through rate compete, and the add to cart and all those things.
Yep.
You can look at those reports and see where you're underperforming, and then where you want to prioritize the test. So, if your click-through rate's really low, well, like Steve said, well, that could be your image, it could be your title. Of course, it could be other things like your reviews and price. But again, use the reports and they will guide you in terms of where should I start to test.
Yeah, I talked to a customer or a prospective client yesterday, and he said, boy, my sales have been growing so great over the last couple of years, and now I'm down 20 to 30%. I don't know what's going on. And what he was doing was he was throwing all sorts of money into updated videos, updated A+, updated storefront, lots of things that all good things to do. But I asked him specifically, what is the data telling you? Why are sales down? And he hadn't yet, thought to look into those things. And what you just said is, the data basically tells the story. Is my traffic and impressions impacted, which means customers aren't seeing my products? Is it that my click-through rates are poor? Is it my conversion rates are poor? These things will tell you what's going on. And if you look at it over time, it's usually pretty clear to see, and especially if you do things that we would teach you to do, like track your ranking for certain keywords, and also look at how your competitors are ranking versus other keywords, and doing things like tracking market competitors, so that if there's a decline, is it just me, or is it the total category? Is it something I should be worrying about or not? we would basically be able to help dive in and help you understand that. So you're investing in the right areas.
Yeah, and I just on that point, I know I bring it up probably every call is, and not that any of us have a vested financial interest in Helium 10, but it's got some great tools. Anybody that hasn't looked at Market Tracker really should, because it does two things. It shows the market trend, so is the market going up and down, up or down, but it also shows, your share of market. So, your sales may, like you talked about, the guy with the 20%, maybe his sales are going down 20%, but maybe the category is down 30. That's a very important insight.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Tip 4 came from Paul Barron at Chat Marketing University, and this was an interesting one. So typically Amazon affiliates, like influencers, anybody that's social media sending traffic to Amazon, they're part of the Amazon Associates program, and that pays them a percentage of any sale that occurs when the customer clicks through the link, but it's a very low percentage. What his idea is to create, first off, sign up for the brand referral bonus as part of the Amazon Affiliates program. You have to sign up for that and basically do that instead of leveraging the Amazon Associates program. But what it does is it pays out a 10% brand referral bonus on all products from your own brand, on average, is what they state. And it's done as a form of a rebate towards your referral fees. So what he was suggesting is basically give them a link that's tagged with your attribution code. And if you see the second point, Pixel Me has a way of automatically creating that attribution code and giving you a link to make that whole process a lot easier. And then what he's doing is he's basically giving them the 10%. So instead of having to basically incentivize the influencers above and beyond their associates program, he's saying, hey, I'll pay you 10% of all the sales that you drive through this particular tag to my brand, and you'll get it all back. And he's not having to put anything out of pocket. And they're getting higher percentage than they would have if through their normal Amazon Associates affiliate links. So I thought it was pretty cool, creative way of using the brand referral bonus. And of course, you wouldn't have to necessarily do all 100% subsidization or subsidy. You could do a 5% or whatever, but he was suggesting 10%.
Yeah, and just in general, I mean, nothing having to do with the Pixel Me attribution link, but just this program in general. I think one of the best, I mean, obviously can be incremental business. And I guess two use cases. One is particularly launching new products. I think everybody knows that when you're launching new products, you can put your bid up to the max suggested bid, and Amazon is going to be very stingy with the ad impressions until you're a proven entity and you've got the reviews and all that stuff. So, one thing I'm seeing is launching new products using external channels, whether it be Facebook or Google, is, critical because to get those ad impressions and to get the velocity going. And so, here you test your way in, you optimize, you get your Facebook advertising to a 10% A cost. This basically offsets that advertising. It's almost, as efficient as organic. The other thing that I've seen some people talk about recently is that, the cost per click on Amazon, on average, the past year has gone up. There's all kinds of numbers out there, but call it 25 to 30%. It's going up much more quickly than other channels. And so that's another, thing where people are getting pinched by these very high cost per clicks and therefore forcing up the rate cost. You can go to potentially, you can find more efficient external channels. The cost per click is less. And on top of it, you get this 10% off. So a couple use cases.
Yeah. And a lot of times it may make sense when you're early on, especially to drive traffic to Amazon any which way you can. So if you have an email database, getting links to drive customers to Amazon may actually lead to higher conversion rates and you get 10% off of your 15% referral bonus if it's a typical product category. That can be a win for you. Sometimes putting an add to cart button on your website might make sense. In addition to, what Paul mentioned with just the different forms of social advertising and Google advertising and so forth. There's lots of ways to drive traffic to Amazon, and it does help algorithmically, it helps you be better positioned on Amazon. And you may find that you're converting better, especially if your brand just doesn't look that strong on your own e-commerce website. You may not be converting as highly, or maybe your policies on your own e-commerce website are flawed in some way. You're charging shipping versus Amazon is free shipping. Maybe there's order minimums, whatever it might be. I would suggest at least you test it. And now with the Amazon attribution process, you can actually monitor the results and have an A/B test and see which one produces better total gross margin dollars. You might be surprised. Tip 5, Google indexes Amazon Q&A, so leverage this to your advantage. We've always told our clients that, hey, listen, you could ask a friend to ask a question on a Q&A and then respond to it. And that would allow you to get your, let's say, competitor names in there, because you can't put competitors in your back end keywords. You can't put it on your front end. You can only advertise against it. So it's one way to actually get organically crawled for competitive names. But what we hadn't really fully thought through is just how you can use this to more specifically for Google when customers ask very specific questions. So I put a question here as an example. So let's say I'm on Google and I type in, what is the best tea for sleeping? Google sees this exact question on your Amazon product detail page with an answer that you as the seller get to answer. So our X brand chamomile tea is ideal to drink before bedtime as it has a calming effect. This is just an example I put together. But I thought it was very cool to think about it this way, because Google indexes Amazon pages very, very well. And since they're indexing these pages, and most people are using Google for this type of question, not the shopping-oriented search results, I think it's a great way to tie them both in. So now on Amazon, you've got it optimized for commerce-oriented search results, and now you're incorporating more research-oriented search queries that Google would benefit from, and you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and this, I would go back to your earlier comment that, these things are all relevant, but, do your due diligence, as we will continue to do.
Yeah.
But this one kind of makes me feel a little gray area.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not review manipulation, but it's kind of getting there. So
I would
this
agree.
is one of those I'd be a little careful on.
I would agree. It's a gray area for sure. And it's not something I would do broad scale by any means. So again, all of these things haven't been validated against terms of service, and we haven't. We're not suggesting them that you do. This is actually a tip that was surfaced, and I thought it was interesting, so I wanted to share with you, and may have some use cases that would be beneficial to you if you wanted to pursue with that risk. And this was by Andrew.
by
I
the
didn't
way-
catch his name, by the way.
Sorry, I was just going to say, by the way, you can't say best act, and I know you're just giving an example, but when you write your listing copy, you're not allowed to say best. So just if anybody sees this, don't put that in your listing copy.
Yeah, but that's why I thought it was a perfect question. All right. So next, tip 6. This was the winner. This was by Vanessa Hung from Online Seller Solutions. And so basically everybody had to vote, and this is the one that won. And it was related to Spanish translations. So, or any translations really, but she was specifically talking about Spanish translations. They are automatically basically modified. So if you have title, bullet points, etc., Amazon is, whenever someone wants to view those things in Spanish or any other language, they automatically convert it. Similar to the way Google Translate would work, it's flawed. So Amazon actually has a team, which I was not aware of, called the Translation Contribution Team. that can override these automated translations, including back-end terms. So for example, if I wanted to add back-end terms for every language, there's no field in Amazon that allows you to do that on the same marketplace, like Amazon US. So this team actually does have the ability to override the translations that it would produce, or maybe they have a separate field for the translations. So you can actually write up what you want it to be, communicate with the translation contribution team, and they can override those automated translations. And she stated that there's 69.9 million, I should say, Spanish users on Amazon. And this was the winning tip. So thought it was an interesting one for sure, especially if you have the right category. We have a client that sells products that are geared towards restaurants and such, and a super high percentage of search queries in the ad campaigns are Spanish. And so that's one way you can tell if people are finding your products with different languages is by analyzing the search term reporting.
Yeah.
And
Steve,
by the way, I'll add to.
Steve,
ahead,
you kind of got to the point that I was going to make, is somewhat related, is that in your advertising, just because this exists doesn't mean you should not be bidding on Spanish terms. And
Right.
Obviously, when you're doing your keyword research, if you have competing products that are ranking for those should show up. They may show up in Magnet if you're using Helium 10, definitely in Cerebro there. So that doesn't mean you should not be bidding on the Spanish, nor expect Amazon for the bidding purposes on advertising that they're going to translate Spanish to English or English to Spanish. For advertising, they're not going to do that. So be sure that you still have some kind of strategy, especially like the example you gave, Steve, in a category where it might be a little bit heavier into the Spanish-speaking community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was going to add to this that if you're going to take this effort to do this, which I've been encouraging clients to do this for a couple of years now, but I was speaking to Amazon, and where I got some of this from, not this tip, but what I'm going to say is that I was speaking to an Amazon agent. It was a category expert, support person, and she made the comment that did we have any Spanish translation of our A+ content? And I was like, what are you talking about? And it was a new feature that they had, but she went on to say, though, that if the Amazon buyer, if the customer has gone into their profile and set their language preference to Spanish, then if you only have English A+ content, Amazon will actually not show your A+, but show your description, and then they will translate your description from English to Spanish. So there's two things there. A lot of clients that come to us that have A+ content, they don't optimize and put a description in there, which now, if you have a Spanish-speaking customer, they're not seeing a description at all. So go ahead and add a description, but
add a
also,
Spanish version of that, right?
Exactly. Don't let Amazon translate that, but yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because listening to this, I've been working on our annual roadmap for a client. And so I've got, the normal stuff, each product line and each sales channel. And all of a sudden this dawned on me, one of the most basic things you do when you're doing, a marketing plan is, what are your different market segments? And it's something that, for whatever reason, I typically in my career have always done, but in Amazon, we kind of focus less on that. So I just added it, and then I started to think, well, wait a minute. So now I'm going to add something, what am I going to do specific for Hispanic audiences? Well, then that opens up a sales opportunity otherwise might not exist, like Cinco de Mayo. Now I've got, Spanish-oriented copy. Maybe there's something I can do around Cinco de Mayo. So,
By the way,
it's actually a lot more than just the translations when you start to think about it.
By the way, I've been in Mexico during Cinco de Mayo, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" They don't. It's more of an American, like, let's make up a holiday type thing, versus Mexicans really celebrating it.
That is so
Okay, well,
something we would do, right?
Yes, exactly.
just like what we've done with Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So tip 7, when running a limited time deal, you can set up a specific ad campaign that calls out a limited time deal or sale on the ads. Again, this is one I haven't validated to verify that Amazon would truly allow it, but Destiny Wishon specifically called this out, that if you had a limited time deal and you created an ad, you could then call out that, in your like brand, let's say your sponsored brand headline, with you have the text that you have freedom to change, you could call out that it's on sale for a limited amount of time, or something that would be a better call to action. And I thought it was pretty interesting if they do allow that. It seems very wise to do, because you probably see much better results and click-through rates if someone knows that it's on sale, which otherwise may not be very clear to see.
It'd be really cool if you could do that with the sponsored brand video, but you have to go through that approval process first. And how are they going to know that you've got a lightning deal or a best deal or whatever running, for it?
It's a good question. I guess if they saw that, maybe they would look and see that there's a sale, but I don't think a lightning deal would work, because you can't. That's a limited quantity offer, right? It would have to be something that is applicable to every customer that would ever see the ad during that period of time. But if it was a sale price or something like that, I think it would potentially work if they were actually see that, because you're right, it does require that approval process.
Yeah, it should be a timing thing on that, but that would be very cool, because now you can see it in a video, possibly something moving, which is going to catch your eye.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could almost make it seem like it's a exclusive Prime Day deal.
Good point. Yeah. So this is tip number 8. This is all related to TikTok. So if you're not a TikTok advertiser, this may just be something to zip through. But he called out that there's a honeymoon period for the first 50 conversions. That manual ad creation is better than bulk files. Bulk files have a lot of glitches, and it's better to do it manually. He mentioned that campaigns should only have 10 to 15% that are new, and never make more than 2 changes per week, or more than 30% of your campaigns. It's pretty. If you're a TikTok advertiser, this is probably something you should take advisement against.
That 10 to 15%.
By Lazar. Yep.
What was that referring to? Is that referring to new campaigns, new keywords? Yeah. What is that?
Campaigns, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Tip 9 was by Cameron Yoder. He said, work with influencers to develop a product that is specifically geared towards that influencer's followers. So this is basically what would their followers want to buy? Something that the influencer can get behind, that's perhaps designed by or similarly unique to them, and then share a percentage of the profits with them. And that could be done for all sales channels. So I think if it was a really big influencer that you wanted to, like, they're just getting stuff thrown at them left and right, and you give them something that they can say, hey, I helped create this. Let's say it's an influencer that talks about emergency preparation or something, and you create an emergency kit that is hand-picked with the things that they recommend or something. That could be an awesome way to get influencer support and buy-in, and all of their followers would be more apt to buy it because it was kind of like sponsored by or designed by or whatever by this influencer. And it could be interesting to do. So again, just an interesting twist on how you could potentially work with influencers.